This is the Automotive Repair Podcast Network.
Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z. I'm Matt Fonzel, and we have commandeered the Remarkable Results radio podcast booth at Apex 2025 live at Las Vegas, Nevada. Cheap Pop. I have a guest, but before I introduce them, I'm going to give a shout out to our sponsors, NAPA AutoTech Training and Pico Technology. Do you have a general service tech that you want to grow into your business, but you're lacking the path to get them there? Let NAPA AutoTech's Apprentice program pave the way. Go to napaautotech.com for more details. Tired of guesswork in your auto diagnostics? Need to pinpoint faults quickly and accurately? PicoScope will turn your PC into a powerful diagnostic tool. See live waveforms from sensors, injectors, and ignition systems. See the problem? Solve it faster. Visit picoauto.com. That's PICO auto.com. Well, I've killed the joke about this being a relative unknown guest and their first time and all that. I've beaten that to death, which normally wouldn't stop me from doing it. But again, I tracked down a frequent guest of the podcast, Margaret Light.
Thanks for having me back.
Anytime, especially when you're at such an event and available. More than welcome. Doors wide open.
Well,
unless Tracy's not around, then it's locked. And we have to wait.
I don't know how we made it.
I mean, we talked a lot about how many of my boundaries were broken.
Yeah, you and your poor boundary violations.
Which is odd I would bring that up because I think that's the topic we were going to...
It is.
I think we're going to talk about boundaries and not the one between the U.S. and Mexico. But yeah, personal boundaries and what they are. And I think there's a wild misconception about what they are. And it's fed by another thing we were talking about. And I'm not trying to just go on all different types of tangents, but therapy speak. Mm-hmm. A lot of words that are real words that have real meaning in professional settings in the therapy world or counseling world, medical, it's reached common vernacular and misused.
Yes.
And one of the heavy hitters, I think, is boundaries.
Yes, very much so. The place I start is boundaries versus rules. Rules are things we set for other people. Boundaries are limits we set for ourselves. And so here's my example of that. A rule would be you're not allowed to yell at me, right? And I think when we go online, that's a lot of time what gets sort of sold as a boundary, right? I'm not going to accept a relationship like where you're not allowed to yell at me, right? But you're not allowed to yell at me is actually a rule, right? It's difficult to enforce that with another person. The boundary version of that would be, if you yell at me, I will leave the room. Because I can enforce that, right? It's a limit on what I'm going to do. And so no matter what happens, even if you do decide to yell at me, I still get to enforce my boundary.
And people struggle, not just with the definition of what that means, like
yes.
What a difference between a rule and a boundary. And am I trying to impose a rule on you versus setting a boundary and then this is the protocol I'm going to follow myself, for me, if that's violated or crossed. But also setting boundaries, like reasonable, healthy boundaries for themselves. Like we get into people pleasing, and that might end up being a whole episode of its own.
Right.
But it's hard to not do that.
Well, it is. And I think we also have to differentiate between different types of boundaries, because even when we get boundaries right, what we tend to think of when we think of boundaries is protective boundaries, right? And so a protective boundary is when we are protecting ourselves from somebody else's bad behavior. So if somebody is yelling or behaving poorly, we think about, okay, I have a boundary there. Even if I'm doing it well, I remove myself from the scenario, or I won't have the conversation with you until you're respectful to me, whatever it is, right? But there's also containing boundaries. And containing boundaries are how we protect other people from our own bad behavior. So if I'm getting so worked up and escalated that I'm going to start behaving badly or calling you names or yelling at you, that's my sign that I need to contain myself, take a break, do something else so that I don't behave poorly towards you.
Yeah. That's terribly difficult. A, to catch yourself all on your own. And then B, to be able to accept somebody, I don't know, calling you out, but that's maybe a little harsh even, that you are elevated, you are starting to become whatever that is, loud, belligerent, however that may be. And then having somebody be able to tell you that and you respond in kind with, that's got to trigger this boundary. I need to remove myself for a few minutes and go whatever that is, right? Relax or.
Right. Well, I think it's so important because it flies in the face of a lot of the messaging we see kind of on social media or out in the world, or even thinking about like being authentic or self-expression. Like all that's great, but do you do it well? And do we sometimes prioritize self-expression over how do I do this responsibly and respectfully and in a way where I'm still contained and not behaving poorly?
Yeah.
Like maybe we don't always need to say exactly what we want to say in the moment we want to say it.
Yep. I wish that happened a lot more. I got to level with you.
Yeah.
Especially in my part, like stuff I say. Pay less attention to what I say and more about what I mean.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting question, right? Of like, are we aware enough of ourselves to know this is the moment?
Evidently, I'm not.
Yeah.
I need to work on my awareness.
Well, don't we all a little bit?
Some more than others.
Yeah, some more than others, true. But even me, right? I like to think that I'm pretty good at containing myself. And there are still times where I'll be talking to someone or I'll have a thought and literally in my head, I'll have to say to myself, Margaret, shut your mouth. I don't say it out loud, but I'm like, Margaret, do not talk. Do not say those words.
What is that?
It's an interesting instinct maybe for you to work on developing.
Instinct does not. Yeah, I'd have to develop that instinct. That's so foreign.
Yeah. What if you could be reflective enough to have a thought of like, oh, I might have to think about this before I say it.
Oh, I can be reflective. I'm really good at the reflective, but the putting that into practice, like that sounds like work.
It is work. It is work. This is true. Yeah. So I think about like relationally, right? I know I should not open my mouth and start talking if I'm overly angry. If every thought in my head is angry and blamey and where I'm like, I'm going to tell them everything that's wrong with them. I'm like, oh no, you're not. You're going to be quiet.
I don't know that I ever feel that way. I think when I start to get really annoyed, which I suppose is just trying to soften angry, but I don't know that I necessarily feel angry. Like when I feel really angry, I leave the premises. Mm-hmm. I don't even find it to be flight response. Just, I don't want to say what's in my head right now. But I find when I get annoyed, I want to tear apart what you're saying, like pick apart every little detail that's wrong.
Right, I'm going to show you why that's wrong.
Tracy's thinking to herself, like, he must be annoyed all the time.
Yeah, what if you contained that sometimes?
What would I do with all that energy?
What if, here's the flip side, what if people started protecting themselves from that?
I mean, it looks like crying.
That's not protecting themselves from that.
How about like turtling up? Fetal position.
Matt, if people are doing that and you're continuing to talk, you have bigger problems than you fessed up to.
I get down to their level and...
Oh, you continue that way. Oh, we really need to work on containment.
Does it involve bars? Padded cell?
Intensive therapy.
Yeah. Oh, man. Makes me think of a scene from Strange Brew.
I never saw it. Sorry.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rick Moranis, Dave Thomas. It's a classic. I think you might actually like it.
Well, text it to me and maybe I'll look it up.
I will definitely do that. I recommend everybody at home listening. I think that's what I do is it's start picking apart what they're saying and finding the flaws to crack it. And oftentimes it ends up being more deflective than anything, right?
Right.
Taking it off of their fundamental issue with me or something I've done and breaking it up or changing it focus to what they're saying and all that. So on one hand, I'm asking them to pay less attention to what I say and more about what I mean. But double standards, that's a different episode. So let's.
Well, it's an interesting question, right? Of like, do we notice our automatic urges? And there is an interesting question there of like, where do I end and you begin, right? Yeah. What are you sort of quote unquote allowed to think, right? Think about like how much we hear that culturally. You're not allowed to think that. I don't want them to think something that's wrong. Well, do we really get to police that for other people? Do we get to decide what they think or what's right or wrong for them? Or do we get to interact with that differently and maybe ask permission, right? Are you open to feedback? Or even I think about like the boundary violation if we say, hey, here's how I think this went, and somebody else says, no, it didn't. Well, you're both stating your perspective. And so is there a way to do that without saying, well, you're not allowed to think that that's what happened?
Right. And very seriously, when talking about that, I find the most difficult thing for me is assigning a feeling to something. I struggle with that greatly because I think unwittingly I was taught, I don't know so much stoicism, but just, I really don't, your feelings are really happy, sad, angry.
Sure, yeah, three
and
of
the
them.
Story. And those are the extremes where, hurt just seems to be like such an umbrella term. But sometimes that's the only one I can come up with is I'm hurt by this. And identifying that my responses or reactions are because of hurt, I find that to be terribly difficult. And so that's a muscle I can't even say it's atrophied unless I had it as a child and then it's just atrophied for the last, multiple decades. So that, to me, that's the hardest thing to do is associating or assigning feelings to these things, to thoughts or reactions. And I think that's leading into what you're saying with a lot of that, and then how to develop it and get good at it, right? Because you're going to start off terrible.
Well, yeah, and I think it's such a good point because there's two ends of that spectrum, right? There's what you're naming, which is, hey, I struggle to even put a feeling to this. And then the far other end of the spectrum is, hey, I felt hurt that you thought this, therefore I need you to change. Yeah. And there's a self-protective boundary there of it helps to not be overly reactive to other people's thoughts or feelings or opinions, because do we need to feel hurt by everything? Or does that just get to be theirs and it may not have to have meaning for us, right? And so both get to be true of it's useful to be able to kind of accurately articulate or communicate, hey, this is how I felt about this. But it's also helpful to be able to say like, you're allowed to think that.
That plays, and I might be doing this incorrectly, associating this incorrectly, but you did a class at ASTA that I can't recommend enough.
Thank you.
And I mean that. And not just because you're sitting here. There's a lot of content in there that, I've known you for a while. We've had a lot of conversations and I still walked out of there greatly affected in a good way. One of the things you said, I think it was empathy, sympathy, and then compassion. We need more compassion. Yes. And what does that mean? Versus, I think, kind of what you're alluding to there is, do we need to be so empathetic? Do we need to be so sympathetic?
Right.
What we probably need to be is more compassion.
Well, yeah, because empathy can sometimes lead to this over connection, right? There's this level of emotional involvement or emotional focus that can happen that almost becomes ineffective, right? And so far ends of that become what we call enmeshment, which is we have to think and feel the same way about the same things. Otherwise, we can't be in a relationship or tolerate each other's presence, right? Whereas compassion is a way to still care about one another, but allowing us to have differing experiences or emotions around the same thing, right? So like with this example, right? So you had a good experience in my course, which I appreciate. Somebody else could have not, right? And that gets to be true for them. And we get to still talk about that if that exists without saying, well, other people liked it, so you're invalid.
Right.
Well, no. And like, I can still hear feedback and then I can still assess, okay, here's what I agree with. Here's what I think is true. Here's what I'm willing to do. And here's where I'm like, I'm okay with that.
Yep. In an auto repair shop environment with boundaries, I'm sure there's no real right beginning to it, but I think to resonate more with an employee, what are healthy boundaries for them to have maybe with their colleagues? Because I think we're going to end up interacting with the public.
Yeah.
And I think that might be easier what the healthy boundaries are. But then also management. What should be their healthy boundaries? So it might be a good place to start. What are some good healthy boundaries for mechanical specialists, technical specialists with their colleagues or advisors, stuff like that. Management has to buy into this. They have to be aware, because I guess the example I can think of off the cuff would be if you have one of the techs and back, technical specialists or mechanical specialists, has an issue with the service advisor, and it can get pretty heated and voices are raised. The advisor may set the boundary of, if you're going to yell at me, I am going to go to the break room, go to the restroom. That seems healthy.
Yes. Right.
Management has to be aware of that and allow for that.
Well, correct, right? Because what you're actually talking about in a professional setting there is somebody who's losing containment, right? Whoever is yelling or behaving disrespectfully, they've now lost their containing boundary. And so it is reasonable for other people to implement a protective boundary, right? The interesting place when we get into employment is employers are actually allowed to set rules, right? Now, enforcement of the rules is inherently reactive because it's discipline after they're broken. Someone has lost containment, somebody else has implemented a protective boundary, and because it's an employment setting, managers then get to come in and say to the person who lost containment, hey, that isn't conduct that's actually acceptable here. How can we support you in developing this skill?
Yeah. Said nowhere ever in any auto repair facility ever.
I mean, you can choose different words, but...
No, but it should be.
Yeah, I mean, true.
Yeah, you heard it here. But it's true. It should. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
I can't imagine, but no. It would be great.
Well, it would. And I think it's an interesting space of... if we care about the industry in terms of professionalism, right? If the goal is to be professionals, behave in this professional setting, and represent yourselves in that way, then there needs to be professional conduct. And even if you want to be compensated like professionals, which all of you are, that comes with some expectations around behavior.
Yeah. Maybe trying to be funny with that, but the reality is how great would that be to be able to, hear how can I support you in either maintaining containment or developing this skill? How great would that be to say that or hear that?
Right.
I don't know that there's enough either fanfare or light shed on such things, right? That's typically not how it works. It's more like what was that show called? I never watched it. West Coast Choppers or something, where it's the confrontational.
Yeah.
And now I'm just, busting the door in and fixing this problem. Like, you will not be yelling at your service advisor like that, or else.
Right.
Rather than, hey, we don't do that here. Right? That's not, I can't have that.
Right. Right. I'm not willing to accept that in this environment.
Rather than if you do that again, I'm going to fire you. It's what could I do to help you?
Well, it's an interesting question, right? So part of my professional role as a therapist is I've done this additional training and mentorship around supervision. And so helping right? New clinicians enter the field and become licensed and all this good stuff. And that's a thing we learn in our training of how do we help young professionals become professionals? How do we help them learn and develop these sort of very messy human skills that allow them to provide good services to the public, right? And people are inherently messy. And so there is this interesting sort of managerial expectation of, I'm just going to tell you, you're not allowed to do this. And I assume or expect that you're just going to do it, versus this sort of recognition that I think, right, therapy is kind of biased towards of, yes, that can be the expectation. And I recognize that's a whole skill set in and of itself. We might have to work on that. So then let's do that intentionally versus just assuming this person can figure it out, because maybe they can't on their own, but with good guidance and coaching, they could.
Right, because we assume everybody can just learn anything if they want to.
Well, and just do it, right? Like It's a light switch. We're just done now. But what if it's not like that?
Yeah, there's a few seasons of Shrinking. Just watch it.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. NAPA AutoTech training sessions are being conducted day and night in a town near you. This training caters to every level within your organization, be it a mechanical assistant, a mechanical specialist, a technology specialist, or a driver safety calibration specialist. Imagine a one-stop shop training partner in NAPA AutoTech that will lead your team to a path to greatness. AutoTech's entry-level Build-A-Tech classes convert the untapped potential of your new hires into money-making mechanical specialists. AutoTech's higher-level tech update classes introduce specialists to the world of ever-changing technologies, which prevents your shop from getting technologically stagnant. Remember, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. And, turning to the front of the store, the AutoTech Service Advisor class is an awesome way to hone your client advocate skill set, ultimately benefiting the customer through an improved vehicle repair experience. But it doesn't stop there. Imagine an electric vehicle class that takes your specialist well past the mundane, yet necessary safety topics. Well, it's here. AutoTech's EV Ready Training is a week-long curriculum that takes participants through a hands-on experience involving hybrids and electric vehicles. The session kicks off with the use of PPE and proper tooling while touching on required OSHA regulations. Then, the students dive into the lab vehicles to gain knowledge of the common high-voltage components on EV and hybrid vehicles and their function. Attendees will be taken on a path exposing them to different electric vehicle manufacturers to compare component form and location. Additionally, information about Level 1 and Level 2 charging systems will be included, along with a quick look at DC to DC charging. The operation and maintenance of subsystems are explored, including the different modes of Tesla operations, and so much more. So what are you waiting for? Commit to taking your business to the next level with NAPA AutoTech Training. Is your shop ready for the electric vehicle revolution? Don't get left behind. The PicoScope EV Kit is your all-in-one solution. Diagnose any electric or hybrid vehicle, from high-voltage batteries to complex communication systems. With guided tests and pinpoint accuracy, you'll tackle more jobs and boost your bottom line. This isn't just a tool, it's your future. Be the expert in EV repair. Visit picoauto.com to future-proof your shop today. That's PICOauto.com.
We underestimate how much skill is actually inherent to containing ourselves. And the flip side with this example is what we're actually asking somebody, right, if they lose containment and yell at someone else, we're not just asking them not to do that. We're also asking them to communicate more effectively. And do they have the skill to do that? Or are what we actually looking at is someone who maybe hasn't learned those communication skills and therefore needs that training and education to do it in this other way that we want.
Yeah, and the answer is probably overwhelmingly no. We're definitely not born with those skills, and we're really not taught it.
Right.
And now it's supercharged with not just social media. Like social media takes a big brunt on this, but just our entertainment is just always exaggerating, always an extreme, overly dramatic. And, you know, I guess I'm sure I didn't coin such a thing, but it used to be art imitated life, but I think now it's switched and we're seeing life imitate art.
Right. It's an interesting question around what are we aspiring to? right? What types of communication do we deem as good and effective? I think about even some of the languaging around, well, I just tell it like it is. Well, what does that actually mean? And is it effective? And who is it effective for?
Right.
Is it actually effective at developing skill? Is it effective at I get to feel better about myself? It's one thing to assign this value of, oh, telling it like it is good, but it's the same question. Good for who?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely shifting responsibility off of yourself onto others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now I can say what I want because I told you I call it as I see it.
Yeah.
Do with this what you will.
Mm-hmm.
I already warned you.
Well, yeah, and now if you're unhappy about it, that's a you problem because it's good that I'm honest.
I think I've actually uttered such words, to be honest.
Yeah. And isn't that an interesting reflection point?
This self-reflection stuff is overrated.
Yeah.
Especially on the air.
Yeah. Are you sad now that you invited me to do this?
No, not at all. I'm upset with myself.
Disappointed that I signed up for this.
I've let myself down. I thought I was getting so much better.
I mean, you are. And
I'm glad you brought that up because I wasn't going to. And not because I was trying to avoid it, but also I don't want to be completely scatterbrained as normal. But another really powerful segment or part of Margaret's class that, again, I really very seriously, we'll go to classes on fundamentals or quote unquote basics on multitude of systems, automotive related, car related, or even business related. And one of them is psychology and relationships and interacting with customers and colleagues and loved ones and all that. So why aren't we attending more of these classes, or why aren't more of these classes available to us at such places? And obviously they're available at ASTA.
Yeah.
They've been available here at Apex. But one thing you had brought up that hit me really hard, like that I spent a lot of time after class thinking about it, was the power of and. A 3-letter word that we use all the time. When we're talking, we say but. You did a really nice job, but everyone knows you ignore everything that was said before the word but.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean B-U-T, but. What if we subtract that word, remove but, and insert and? You did a really good job on this and made a mistake here or could have did this better. Mm-hmm. Both of these can be true. And I find I'm using it at home with the kids, and its effect has been positive and immediate that they even recognize it. Not that they're going to call me out like, wow, you said and instead of but the way they respond to it is so much better than, you did a really good job cleaning your room, but
right. You missed this.
You missed this spot. And it's received totally different. It hasn't been as hard to talk that way as I thought it would be.
Yeah, it actually is a fairly easy switch, I think. I mean, we still go on autopilot and do our stuff. And I think, so this actually does still work with the boundary discussion because a lot of times when we're navigating boundary stuff, even at work, right? Like let's say you have someone showing up late and you have to talk to them, right? It's easy to go in and have that discussion of like, hey, okay, tell me why you were late. Oh, I overslept. Okay, I hear that, but you have to be on time. It's an easy switch, right? Yes, I understand you slept through your alarm and I do need you to show up on time, right? Both get to be true. And so sometimes when we use but, it either is intentionally this disqualifier or it can be interpreted that way. Or sometimes what it does is it does this interesting kind of hierarchical thing, right? I heard that this is true for you, but here's what I think and feel and why that is better or correct or more accurate versus and, which says it's more equal, right? Yeah. You get to hold this I get to hold this. Both are true. And now we're not competing about who's correct or who's more right.
I want to be more right.
You want to be more right. I know. What if you get to be right just like everybody else sometimes?
Wow, that's like a participation trophy. No.
Why do we need trophies to be human, you guys?
I get them on my PlayStation 5. I have a lot of them. Gold, silver, couple platinums. Okay, I suck at the games.
But I think there's this thing there. I can't say much about PlayStation 5 because I don't play video games, so this is a little bit out of my league.
I have a boundary, and we can't be friends anymore.
Well, that is an interesting boundary, isn't it? We can talk about whether that's reasonable.
And
my boundary is I'm not going to do things just because you told me to.
I think when we were talking earlier about boundaries, the first thing that popped in my head was what we think to be common. It's so rare that it happens, but the customer is at the counter, furious.
Yeah.
Furious or scared. And they're the ones now out of containment.
Yes.
The voice is raised. Whoever's interacting with them, most likely a customer service rep or a service advisor. And we hear like phone operators, right? They have their boundaries. If you swear, they hang up. That's a boundary. Advisors to have, it's probably not unreasonable for them to be able to say like, if you're going to raise your voice at me, I have to leave or step away for a few minutes. And I invite you to go have a seat or have a soda or a refreshment or whatever. And then I'll be back in X amount of time and we can reconvene. That's the first thing that pops in my head. But also management could also step out, right?
Yeah.
They could have a boundary, but you know, we said that employers or management can set rules for employees. Would we say that there's rules for clients about, I can't have you raising your voice at my...
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally, right? It is still this place of we are allowed to have kind of expectation and rules around conduct in these settings, right? Of course. It's interesting to think about in those maybe high intensity scenarios, how are we communicating that, right? Because if somebody's escalated and upset and angry, if we come in and we state it as a rule, right? You're not allowed to act like that. You're not allowed to yell at my staff. Okay, there's maybe nothing inherently wrong with this statement because it is reasonable, right? But when you have someone escalate it, it almost sets up a bit of a power struggle where what they're going to come back with or could is, I'm going to talk however I want and you can't stop me, which is technically true.
Yep.
And so it's an interesting place then to get a little strategic around what if you say it of, hey, I'm happy to address this with you. I'm going to have to ask you to leave if you continue to yell at me. Because that's all about me. I'm not telling you anything about you. I'm telling you what I will do. And I've now provided this reassurance, right? Both are true. I'm happy to help and.
Yeah.
And again, right, like even worst case scenario, if you do have to ask them to leave, it almost simplifies it because then no matter what they say, you get to just broken record it, right? You don't have to think of something. You don't have to convince them that they're out of line. You don't have to tell them that they're thinking wrong. You get to just broken record. I'm happy to help you and you continue to yell at staff. I need you to leave.
Yep.
I'm happy to help you when you're calmer and I need you to leave. I need you to leave. Like it's so easy then.
That's really good. And it ties so many things together. Now what do we do?
Give me another example. Let's see if
no
I
other
can do
customers
another.
left.
Yeah,
so
no, we've dealt with them all.
Ask them all to leave.
Well, right. We can invite them to do other things. I'm going to have to ask you, like, have a seat. I will get back to you.
Yeah, probably the harder one, I think, off the cuff is employees setting up boundaries with management.
So let's talk about that.
I think that's the hardest one because you have usually, at least implied, a major power dynamic.
So employees are allowed to have boundaries, right? So I think about things like, okay, if it's outside of work hours, you're probably not actually obligated to respond to calls or texts. You're probably not, and that's probably reasonable. The place people make mistakes with it is they'll say, you're not allowed to text me after work. That's a rule. You can't stop your boss from texting you after work. The boundary would be, I'm not going to respond to this question until I get to work, which is very reasonable. And you can either state that or you can just do it. Right? Sometimes that's the boundary is, no, I literally just do the thing. First thing when I walk in the door, hey, I saw your text last night. I'm ready to talk about it. Great. I think where boundaries can get a little co-opted in this discussion is when employees maybe are struggling to hear feedback or to live up to an expectation that is reasonable. Right? And that gets a little bit into how do we define reasonable, right? The example I always use is like being on time. Well, it isn't fair that you won't cut me any slack on being on time. You should do this. Like that isn't a boundary. That's a value statement. That's here's what I wish were true. And that's actually where it's very reasonable for management to have the boundary of, hey, I understand that for some reason this is hard for you, and this is the expectation here. This is the expectation I hold.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that has to be your expectation of yourself. You get to do whatever, but the expectation for employment here is this.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I hear that and I'm thinking immediately to very early episode we did, and we're talking about relationships and Gottmans, where needs and desires, and a lot of times they get confused. I need you to do this. Well, no, I greatly desire for this. And, I greatly desire for you to, hit me with a lot of affirmation, lots of affirming statements. Well, they get to choose whether they want to or not. And if they decide they don't want to, you get to choose how important that really is.
Right.
And it sounds very similar to this, where my expectation of you is to be here at 7:45.
Right.
Because the doors open at 8.
Sure.
I need you, here getting ready for the day, and we're going to talk things over. And then, and it's like, well, I don't want to. Oh, you don't have to.
Right.
You just can't work here anymore.
Right.
So I like how stuff just correlates really well.
Well, yeah. And I think that's where we sometimes can work in the and, right? So I think about like with my supervisees or folks, right, I'm helping through this kind of professional socialization stuff. That's where and is really powerful, right? Yes, you're right. That is really hard to do. I understand that that's uncomfortable. And, right, this is a thing we have to do. So let's talk about how to make this doable. I do that with my supervisees all the time, right? Yes, I understand that, right, having that conversation, someone's probably going to get upset with you. And I get it, right? That's hard to tolerate. We can talk about how to work through that. And you still have to do it. There is still a bit of a rule and expectation thing there around employment, right? I am telling you what you have to do. But what I'm not doing is violating this interpersonal boundary and saying you're not allowed to be upset by it. You're allowed to be upset by it. You're even allowed to be upset there was discipline. Like, you get to be mad. You get to think I'm mean. Doesn't change what I do. But it's an interesting place of nuance of like, what are we giving feedback on? And where do we just let it sit because people get to? I think it's their thoughts and feelings. Yeah. Like, maybe we don't have to comment on that.
Yeah.
You get to hate I didn't give you this day off work. You get to be really mad at me about that. That's okay. And I'm still expecting you to be here that day. You can be mad all day long about it. That's totally fine.
That's a mindset that might be initially difficult to adopt, but how freeing is that? Right? Because now you don't necessarily get emotionally wrapped up into it. Like, they didn't meet this expectation, and now I'm very upset with them. I'm frustrated. I'm losing respect for them, whatever that may be. If I have that thought of, the and it just takes a lot off your own plate.
Well, it does, right? And I think there is an interesting question there around a lot of times our reactions to other people say more about us than they do them, right? So if someone is mad at me or doesn't like me, or I have a supervisee who says, Margaret, you're terrible at this, which has happened, like, okay, but do I have to carry that around? Do I have to take that on? Or does that get to be their opinion? And does their upset say something about them? And my reaction gets to say something about me.
Yeah. I mean, you get to try to think about it. Are what they're saying reasonable? Mm-hmm. Is there some truth to what they're saying?
Yeah.
And I honestly don't think so. Or maybe there is a little bit, and now I can work on that.
Sure.
But maybe there isn't much to that. And that's so there. I don't have to carry this around.
Correct. I run direct when I'm giving feedback to supervisees, especially early on, right? So think about like if I'm a manager, I run direct in giving feedback to employees. I had someone that didn't work for, right? And so when they communicated that to me, it was a little rough, right? It was a lot of, Margaret, you're disrespectful. You're not good at this. You don't treat me like a future colleague, right? There was a lot there. And so then I got to kind of sift through that line by line. Okay, do I think I was disrespectful? Nope. Am I treating you like a future colleague? No, I probably would have been more direct, right, if you were a colleague. But this is what I'm doing in my head, right? I'm not saying it out loud to them. In the moment, what I'm saying out loud is I'm so glad you brought me this. I'm willing to talk about it. Okay, yep. So tell me about why this doesn't work for you. Tell me about what would work better. Okay, how do I still give you the same information? Because I can't tell you I'm going to give you different information. But how could I give you the same information and have it feel better for you? Again, I'm not agreeing to do it yet, but I'm willing to hear it. And so I get to sift through all that feedback. And what I came to was I didn't actually do anything inherently wrong there, right? There was nothing bad in what I did. What they were telling me is about their personal growth and development, and they weren't ready to hear it yet. And so then I got to decide, am I willing to shift my style to better work with this person and make it more effective? Now with this knowledge of, oh, and part of what we're working on is this personal growth of we need to get you to a place where I can be more direct with you. But I'm not shaming or blaming you about that.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a lot there. One, leading with curiosity, like thanking them for bringing that, and then asking clarifying questions. Like it's so easy to do outside looking in, or so easy to, for at least, I hate to say just me specifically. I know it's not just me, but outside looking in, giving such advice like, well, did you ask questions? Did you show interest? It's so easy to do until somebody does it to you. And then it's like,
yeah. Well, that's where that containing boundary comes in. Because I can tell you my automatic urge in that scenario was not to be kind.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't. The automatic urge, it was anger. And I was like, ooh, that was a Margaret, shut your mouth moment. Do not say those words, Margaret. Find different words.
I'd have to pull out like a thesaurus. Maybe there is room for a large language model in my life. That might save me some things. I'll have to experiment with that.
Yeah. But here we
give me a
are.
minute.
Yeah. We're back with like, if you want to show up differently, you do have to contain yourself. And we're back to that boundary again.
Have you had a good show otherwise so far?
Like with you or here in general?
I was thinking in general.
Yeah, it's been great.
I'm really not prepared to hear the directness about how it is with me.
The answer is both have been great.
Oh, well, in that case.
It was lovely. I get to walk. I got a lot of exercise yesterday.
Say one thing. Yeah, you would get plenty of steps in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any plans of just perusing the shows a little bit, the trade shows portion?
I did a little bit yesterday, maybe today. I haven't spent time in Vegas before, so we walked a little bit yesterday, and that was interesting.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that you couldn't have a few years ago pre-F1, because walking up and down the strip would have been so much easier.
Yeah.
But in preparation, specifically, I think in preparation for the F1 race coming up shortly, it's a little rough now. Mm-hmm. So did you make it up to the north end to watch the water water show, or were you a little late for that?
We went to a hockey game last night, so we walked back from T-Mobile Stadium.
So you got to see the Golden Knights?
Yeah.
Who did they play?
Detroit?
Red Wings?
I think so.
That's fun. I'm not going to hold you to it.
Vegas won. It was lovely. It was a whole show.
You might run into a Hawken boundary, which right. He calls that the blue line. Yeah. Or the crease. Probably the crease. Is he a goalie at heart?
Yeah.
You're in the crease. Sorry.
Right. It was.
Do you have a penalty box in your house?
Oh, no, but that'd be so funny.
Yeah, especially if you put him in it.
We put ourselves in our own penalty boxes. We're both like, oh, this is not the moment. Take a break.
You've crossed my boundary. Now you got to serve 2 minutes. 2 minutes for boundary crossing.
No, we're pretty good about like, oh yeah, we should separate for a bit. Take a break.
It's like the breakup. You have this big white line down the middle of the house.
No, what we did is we bought a big enough house so that we each have like separate offices and separate bathrooms and,
I've heard about this house. They don't call them they're wings.
They're wings, yeah.
That's the technical term. Wings. She got the West Wing, believe it or not.
Yeah, shocking.
I really, really appreciate you coming on, carving time out of your day to stop by and talk about boundaries.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. I genuinely appreciate all of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're willing to talk about it.
I will talk about anything, believe it or not.
I do believe that.
I have no boundaries. Just killing that. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you to our sponsors, NAPA AutoTech Training and Pico Technology. Thank you to the Automotive Repair Podcast Network for making this all possible. Even Tracy, who won an award, believe it or not. No, I'm serious. She did. She very well deserved. And her acceptance speech was one for the ages. Not as good as like Jimmy Valvano, but close. And so thanks again for listening. Until next time, take care.
You've been listening to Diagnosing the Aftermarket A to Z with Matt Bonslow on the Automotive Repair Podcast Network. Download our exclusive podcast app at automotiverepairpodcastnetwork.com because the best conversations in the industry start here. Want Matt to cover a specific topic? Check the show notes for his email. Your input matters.